Good day, viewers. Welcome back. David Oliverio, the Preaching Humanist. That is I. I want to discuss the all-important hope Christians claim. They have the three foundations of their faith. Now by the three things of 1 Corinthians 13, faith, hope, and love. What is hope? We're going to talk about where Christians and believers and those of us that were once believers, where did we once get our hope? And then as atheists, I'm going to have the guys come in a moment, and we shall discuss where we as atheists and secular humanists and non-religious folk get our hope in. So first of all, hope is a feeling of expectation and desire for a certain thing to happen. So we're looking forward to something good that's going to happen, right? Back in 1834, way back in the day, a Baptist pastor wrote a hymn. This is the foundation for the Christian message, is faith, hope, and love. And some of you that come from a very Christian background, like I did, may remember this song, "My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood of righteousness." Let me see. On Christ the solid, almost forgot it. On Christ the solid rock I stand, no other ground is sinking sand. All the other ground is sinking sand. Their hope is in the gospel message of Jesus. Well, the fact is, I ain't sinking in no sand there. I'm actually stepping up on rock, and we do have hope as atheists. So let's discuss where the believers get this hope in. So I'm going to take you right back to the Bible, and this is the belief system of Christianity, and then we shall counter that and tell you where we get our hope. Romans chapter 8, verse 18, "For I," the writer of Romans says, "consider that the sufferings," and it's always about suffering, right? And that's the message of Christianity, hardships in this present world, and then looking forward to going to heaven. "So I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with, futuristic, with the glory that is to be revealed to us," future tense. Verse 20, "in hope." Verse 22, "For we know," you don't really know, you believe, "that the whole creation groans and suffers the pains of childbirth together until now." I like to call this the childbirth analogy. So this writer, Christian writer, and most believers today are told that they, all of creation, is like a woman in labor. And I tell you, I do remember when my daughter and son were born back in the 80s. I was there with my wife at the time, the mother of my children. It didn't look like a very pleasant thing that she went through. According to the Bible writer here, that all of creation, Christians obviously, are like women in labor, waiting and expecting something good to happen, the delivery of the child, right? To eliminate this pain and suffering and to escape it. And that's the Christian message. They're waiting for something and expecting something good to happen. And it goes down here in verse 23, "We groan within ourselves, waiting eagerly," this is hope, "for our adoption as sons," I don't know why they don't say daughters, but sons, "the redemption of our body," verse 24, in hope again, in verse 25, "But if we hope for what we do not see, with perseverance we wait eagerly for it." Now, what is it? Pretty clear. Christian message is in Titus chapter 2, verse 13, they wait for the blessed hope and the glorious appearing of the Lord Jesus Christ. Often I hear, and often those of us that engage with believers, when we ask them questions constantly, they will ask me right back, and they will say, and ask me, "David, you as an atheist, where do you get your hope? If you don't believe in a God, if you do not believe in immortality, if you do not believe like we do as Christians, that we are waiting in great expectation for Jesus to come and to deliver us out of this horrible place called earth. And we are like a woman in pain of childbirth, the childbirth analogy, and we're just waiting for Jesus to rapture us and take us away. Where do you, Mr. David Oliverio, and all you atheists, get your hope if you don't believe in the supernatural? And believe it or not, I get this often. My buddies and I get it often. The question is always there, and we have answers. We have natural explanations. We put our hope in humanity, science, reason, human enlightenment. I discussed this on my message a couple weeks ago about positive atheism and positive secular humanism on the Enlightenment and so forth. There's so many things that we can hope for without belief in a God. So I want my buddies to come on in now. Come on in, Eric and Manoj, and we are going to discuss, I'll let them discuss and give you their take on where we, come on in guys, where we find our hope as atheists. So we have Eric and Manoj. You folks are probably very familiar with my buddies here. And before we go on, guys, we had a really good time yesterday, and I'd love to discuss our atheist activism. Yesterday morning, we went out to our regular spot to help the needy people, homeless people. We had this brutal cold front come through yesterday here in Austin.
Yeah, it was cold and drizzly, so it made for
40 degrees.
Yeah, it made for a cold day, and it was kind of miserable. But you know, we might have been miserable. Just think about the homeless people that were down there trying to help. How miserable they are, and they've got to deal with that every single day. So. I don't feel bad a bit, you know, for us.
Yeah, it really breaks my heart, and I know it does for y'all too. And here I am driving home after these people live under a bridge, lying on mattresses and sleeping bags. It's 40-something degrees outside, going down to, 38 at night. And I'm going home to this enclosure called an apartment with a heater, a roof over my head, food in the refrigerator, running water. It just kind of really breaks my heart. But we do what we can do, right? And
yeah, I mean, you know, you do. That's exactly what you do. You go out and you provide what you can provide, you know? You provide the help you can provide. You provide the supplies that you're able to afford to, you know, supply to help these people. You know, everything that we do comes out of our own pockets, you know? But, you know, it's absolutely worth it. And, you know, I kind of look at it like this, you know. I mean, I like to do things. I like to go to concerts. You know, I like to go to professional sporting events and stuff. And if I can spend the money to buy tickets to go to those things, I damn well can spend the money to go to the grocery store and buy some stuff that will help people who have nothing, essentially. So, you know, that's...
Yeah, I know that when I go out with you guys and we help the homeless, it's not going to make a big difference. It's just some bit of food for a meal, a drink, or some old clothes. It's not going to make a big difference in the world, but the spirit there, it just brings out happiness and some goodness in me. I like that. Yeah. And also, I think we like to see the message spread, and hopefully more people will be aware and sympathetic with those who don't have protections against the cold and hunger.
Right. But doesn't this, we're talking about hope today, right? Are we instilling hope in these people somehow in humanity? Because most of them there tend to be very...
Absolutely.
Christian, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, we are instilling some hope in these people that, you know, they subconsciously or consciously get the message that, okay, there are people who care a little bit. The world does care, so that instills hope.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. That there's a percentage of people that do care enough to do something. And there are people out there. And the comments I get from people throughout the week, if I'm helping homeless people, and when we go out on the weekends, they attribute what we do as atheists, and of course Phil and Virginia and all the other groups out here that are secular.
They do way more than we do.
Oh yeah, it's
on such
amazing.
A much larger scale. So yeah, that's a great thing that they do.
Oh yeah, but the believers out there that are the homeless people and the real needy will contribute our giving and our helpfulness to the needy people to God.
Yeah, even when we tell them we're atheists and we're out here doing, you know, things for humans, you know, we're just trying to help human beings because, you know, that's what we should do. Yeah. And even the people, some of the homeless people will still make the argument of, well, it's God working through you. You know, it's God working through you. You can't refute it, and I don't really try to refute it because I'm not out there to try to change their minds or anything. I'm out there to try to provide a little bit of help for them for that day. You know, although we will have conversations. We had a conversation yesterday with that one gentleman.
I took a video a debate you had with a guy.
Very nice young man. But, you know, he actually found out that we were atheists, and he wanted to come over and talk about it and wanted to know why we were atheists. And we had a discussion, and, you know, he used the same old tools they always try to use. Well, I had an experience. I had an experience. And so, you know, very politely told him, well, you know, your experience doesn't prove that something is real. You know, that was just an experience you had. But in questioning him, which I, you know, like to do with believers, because they talk about, you know, the goodness of God and how he can heal and he can do these things. And, you know, I asked him, I said, you know, so people get cancer. My brother died of cancer. And if you were God, if you had the power, would you give somebody cancer? You know, would you give your mother cancer? And he didn't want to answer the question. I mean, he would refuse to answer the question. He would skirt around it and say, well, I'm not God, and I don't have those powers. I can't put myself in God's place. And well, it's fine. Let's just play a game. If you had that power to give somebody cancer or to heal somebody, would you give somebody cancer? And he wouldn't answer it. And I know the reason why he wouldn't answer it. Because he knew, and they all know, that if they answer in the affirmative that, of course not. If I had the power to give somebody cancer, hell no, I wouldn't do it. That automatically proves that their human morals are greater than the morals of that false God in that stinking book.
Yeah, but and Eric, this is a repeating theme. We've had conversations where people attribute some good event or good action to God, but then when you ask them questions like what you did about the cancer, then they don't answer the question. This is not a one-time thing. We've seen many incidents of this, and this just shows you that, you know, belief in God just puts them in a place where you are obliged to protect the unknown, the supernatural force, even though you cannot actually explain or describe that thing that you're trying to protect, how that is attributable to the good action or event, to you know, a third person. They are not able to describe that. It just puts them in a bind where they have to protect and talk around these issues. They explicitly do not want to say, no, I give up. You're right. I cannot clearly articulate how God intervened here.
Yeah. It's God's will.
It's a mental burden.
He works in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
It's a mental burden that, you know, I think when you have these mental burdens that are just clouds hanging over, it takes away something from your authentic, you know, full throttled life force in you. It just puts a limitation on you.
Yeah, what really ticks me off, and you guys know this, is when they contribute, these actions of goodness and kindness that those of us who do not believe in God, right, that are atheists, or any person for that matter, they cannot just say it's done from humanity. They cannot. It's hard for them to give any kind of credit to a human being. Why? Because the Bible clearly teaches about that's pride. Proverbs chapter 6, that's one of the deadly sins. That there's pride and God hates pride and so forth. So if you say, no, we're just humans, we don't need to believe in anything supernatural. And we don't see a God out here doing anything. We see humanity.
Right.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, and, you know, the thing that you just said about pride and the Bible is saying that it's bad, then, I mean, then, you know, come on. These big Christian groups and even small Christian groups, they're full of pride about the things that they do. They talk about the things that they do. They advertise about the things they do. They're proud of the things that they do. Mm-hmm. So they're proud whether they want to admit it or not. And that's a human reaction. Sure. Yeah, I'm proud.
You know, at this point,
if I do something that's good, I'm proud of that.
Makes you feel good.
Why some behaviors of attributing good things to God? It's So I think all people really need to do is introspection. When you look deep inside yourself, why do you help others? Oh, God makes me do that. Could be the first answer some people get. But then if you look at it closely, you take, for example, your child or someone really close. Why do you help that? Oh, it actually makes me feel good. So there is the biology in us where helping others actually makes you feel good and gives you a better experience of life. And that's exactly why we do it. And there's an evolutionary reason for it. Absolutely. This is the trait that helped the species of humans to thrive in large numbers and collaborate, work together, and not always against each other. Yeah. And here we are. Without this biological trait, we would not be here. And now people could say attribute that to God, but then you can look at animals. They actually don't bicker all the time. They help each other too.
Absolutely.
There's goodness in them too. So then, it's not a human thing that God has put in. It's just that's the way that life occurs on earth, and that's the way life is sustained.
Yeah. And would we do these good things for other people like we did yesterday, which other people do as well? Would we do these things, Manoj, if it didn't feel good? Is this biological? Is this our genes rewarding us and encouraging us to do things for other people, for the species? Because if it didn't feel good, we might not do it as much.
No.
Like eating, like sex, like other important things for procreation, survival. And it feels good.
And we don't do things that don't feel good, like go out and fight with people, knowing that, the other person is weaker, I can destroy that person. I don't just go and do that. It doesn't feel good.
Man, we got a message, man. We got to get out there with this message. Speaking of going out, Eric and I, when we're finished here, we're going to head over to the State Capitol building.
Yeah. For the reading of the Declaration of Human Rights by the Ethical Society of Austin. And the Center for Inquiry is also one of the sponsors of that event. So,
right.
Yeah.
Which I know and believe. I think most of us have read these. What are there, 30 of them?
Yeah,
Statements?
There's 30
statements. Oh, just pure humanism. And you know what's interesting, and we might do an episode about this in the future because we're going to go out and take a video of it today.
Yeah.
And we can do some interviews out there. But it's interesting, my background in Christianity, and Eric, you were from Christianity and you were from you're from Hinduism. But in Christianity, I don't remember once in my father's church, or even when I was a young preacher, even mentioning the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I didn't even know about it because it's beautiful. I mean, honestly, when I read it, I'm a wuss, you know that. I get kind of teary-eyed. I love it. It's about equality and helping people. Well, it's pure humanist.
I can actually remember, though, at times in church, the idea of human rights being ridiculed. Because it's not, it was almost the thing of, we can't make up our own human rights. God does that for us is what it was, you know what I mean? So, it was almost like we were trying to, they were saying that we're trying to take over God's power, that we were trying to take, do what God is already doing for us, which is...
And that's the proud thing, the pride thing I was talking about.
It's competition. It's, people doing Declaration of Human Rights is about people doing what humans do, good, just good, for goodness sake. And then the churches might feel, they are encroaching in our domain and taking away what's ours. So that's just competition.
Yeah.
And they hijacked that, haven't they? They've just completely hijacked that being good and owned it up for themselves. So, Eric, you've got a little list here before we get into the topic of hope. What do you got there?
Well, this is a list of all the ACA productions, all the shows that are produced here at the Atheist Community of Austin. And I'm just going to read them off here, and that way y'all will all have an idea of, all the shows that are produced. There's a few of them. So we, of course, do the Atheist Experience, which has been around forever and ever. It was on, the television, Access TV, whatever, before the interwebs became a thing. But and then, of course, you got Talk Heathen and the Nonprofits, Godless Bitches, the Preaching Humanist, and the Atheist Roundtable. That's us. The Atheist Interviews, Secular Sexuality, Truth Wanted, and Parenting Beyond Belief. So Yeah, that's all the shows that we currently are producing for the ACA. We actually will add another show here at the beginning of the year because our show, where they're kind of revamping and going to rebrand it. So the Preaching Humanist, Atheist Roundtable will be something else come the new year. We just haven't decided on a name yet.
Yeah, we're still...
We're going to do a different kind of format. We're going to add some of our footage from our activism in the street and things like that to it. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be exciting. We're excited about it.
We're like the street preachers of the gang, right? We're the missionaries and the evangelists out there on the street. So we're doing a lot of videos, and we're going to... I'm going to have the guys, they're going to edit it into our new talks coming up on the new show. So it's going to be more like a variety show, wouldn't you say? Is that
well, in a sense, yeah, in a sense, because we're going to still do this. We're still going to talk about issues, and but hopefully some of the things that we experience in the field will be some of the issues that we'll talk about, and then we can use the footage from the field to help explain why we, have this on the show, why we're talking about this on the show today. Because trust me, we have a lot of good experience.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And this is one thing, being behind a camera, and this is beautiful, all the shows that you read off and all the activism we do on the internet and so forth and social media, but there's still nothing like getting out there with real live people. And we're headed back to the Alamo in San Antonio again next week, and we've got the gang from the Atheist group and from San Antonio. Several of them are going to meet us down there. So we're getting people fired up about getting out there. And
yeah, actually, one of the people we met the last time in San Antonio, Andy Wine, is coming down here today to watch the shows and everything. So shout out to Andy Wine.
Hey. All right, guys, we got a few minutes. Let's talk about the topic that I went over on my discussion earlier on hope. So I went over the Christians' hope, which is in the return of Jesus, right? They believe that. But the question they have, and I'm sure you guys get it too, is, you're atheist. Where do you get your hope? What do you have an expectation for? If you don't believe in immortality and life after death, which we don't because there's no evidence for it, where do you get your hope? So you guys go ahead and discuss this. As atheists, where do you get your hope?
Once again, it's from within. It's we all humans, we all have this ability to desire things and hope things and feel rewarded when we get them. So again, for me, all these questions, when I get them, it's an exercise of introspection. So I'll just break it down to something really simple, and just to separate the mechanism of how this is done. For example, if I had a nice snack over here, right? Now, that's possible, but it's not there. But if I was hungry, I would hope there was something there. Mm-hmm. So that's just natural, because our biological system reacting to the hunger inside. If you think of food, you desire food, and there it's born. That's hope for food, So that's a very simple example. Yeah. Now you can you can take any big subject where hope plays a role and then break it down the same way. Big disease, terminal diseases, natural disasters, what have you. Yeah.
Well, hope, like another simple example from my life is with my grandson, and he's senior in high school and, going to go to college. Well, I hope he gets a scholarship. Well, okay, so where does that hope come from? Well, it comes from the things that we've been doing to help secure that scholarship. He's been working on his grades and getting his grades better, and he's hoping to get a basketball scholarship, and he's probably going to get it. He's a badass basketball player, and he works on his basketball skills. He, works on them in school. He works on them out of school. I've signed him up for, different organizations and websites that help him get scholarships and that bring attention to him to get scholarships, and so, yeah, we hope that he's going to get a scholarship, but it's coming from the things we do, the action that we're taking to provide that result, hopefully. It's not, I'm not just sitting back going, well, I hope he gets a scholarship and let's see what happens and do nothing, so I'm taking action, and I'm hoping that action produces a result.
I'm glad you said action, because that's what it is. Now, a couple weeks ago, you guys haven't seen the video I did on optimistic humanism. And I've been reading a lot of Steven Pinker. I love Steven Pinker. Not everybody does. I really do. And he's an optimist. And he's talking about the Enlightenment, returning back into the Enlightenment values and ideologies and so forth, based on humanism, reason, of course, science, technology now. And then you look at the world and you can extrapolate and look at the way we are right here in we're about to get into 2019 in a few weeks. And you can look back a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades ago and see a large difference. The small incremental changes, normally for the good. But there's that counter-enlightenment. So that's what I've discussed that. For me, I mean, I'm very hopeful in the human enlightened mind. I know it's not perfect, but it does improve things. And I'm glad you said action, because rather than the Christian's hope is really just you're waiting for the blessed hope, right? Yeah. Like you heard me say.
And that sounds horrible too, but anyway.
Like a child in labor.
I put it like this, I hope that don't happen.
So, it is a complex thing, right? If for Christians as well, it's not purely just a religious hope. A lot of them, if they're trying to get into a basketball team, they would practice. In addition, they would pray. That's all there is. It's... there's the prayer and hope that goes well because, when you have hope, it's a motivating factor. Now, where I've seen the detrimental effects of hope is just in India, I've seen really poor people, they are sick and they cannot afford treatment. And, when you speak to them, it's usually, they hope and they pray that they be healed. That's all they have. Now, in their situation, what else could somebody provide them, right? Now, obviously, treatment, that's out of the question here. So how would you... Now, their hope at that point is based in faith, some religious belief. And what happens is they just wait. They still wait with hope, and then one day they're just gone, something like that. But instead, you can base your hope. Hope is universal. Everybody, believers and non-believers have hope, but can be of different types. One is hope based in the supernatural, which we know doesn't happen. If you statistically... I wonder what the turnout is, when they get a good result from hope. But you can base your hope in reason, and that's the way I like to go. Yeah. So for this example, for this really poor, helpless person, we could say, hey, you can talk to these other people. They know about organizations that reach out with treatment to helpless people. Some information that's not... it doesn't cost you anything because people don't want to just take the cost and help. But at least we can share information. Now that gives them hope. Oh, maybe if I go talk to them, we'll see if they have some free treatment or something like that. Now that's, I think, hope-based in this world, more likely to give a better result, because then with that hope, this person is actually going to go and try to find out if there's something he can do for himself.
Well, and I think you're right. In hope for believers, whatever religion is, hope and faith are intertwined, and they say that themselves, and it is intertwined, but it also can be bad and detrimental. And the perfect example is the Christian scientists who hope that God's going to heal their children, and they pray and they have faith, and because they such a large amount of them will not take their children to be seen by a doctor. Do you still encounter that as a nurse? Do you see that? I haven't seen anything like that recently, like on a personal level. I have in the past encountered it, but those children die. It happens all the time. In Utah and in like Idaho, there's a lot of those groups there, and people live there. They move there specifically because they protect those people. The states do. They've written laws protecting the Christian scientists and stuff like that, which is a bunch of horse shit, because they're letting their kids die because they won't take them to the doctor. Instead, they all pray and they put hands on them and they do things that are not going to work, and then the child dies. And then, you know, some of them have been prosecuted, and that makes me hopeful that they prosecute these idiots. But we had a Jehovah's Witness family brought their child in sick, and it ended up this child needed a blood transfusion, and they were refusing for this child to get a blood transfusion. But it wasn't the first time at this ER that had happened, and they were prepared. There was a judge that had already had to deal with this kind of thing, and the doctor got on the phone, called the judge came down, he wrote an order, security came, and we told the parents, that child's getting a blood transfusion, whether you want it or not. And we did. We transfused him. Saved his life.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he would have died.
Didn't see Jehovah down here doing anything, so humanity had to do something.
Yeah,
right?
Maybe he was invisible. Maybe he was the invisible guy that we didn't see, and he was back there directing everything. I don't know.
But they don't... You know, I try to be so careful when I talk to believers when they have hope, like they lose a loved one due to death, right?
But you know,
the hope is I'm going to go be reunited with my loved one in heaven.
Yeah, and that's the thing that makes people feel good. I understand that, and I don't want to take that away from them. Fine, believe that if that's what you want to believe. You're going to see grandma, you're going to see grandpa. If that makes you feel good, makes you sleep better at night, and puts a smile on your face, that's fine. I don't care.
In the example of Jehovah's Witness, they could say, we try to not get the blood transfusion for the child, but yet the judge came down, made this order, and ordered the doctors to give the blood transfusion. And that could all be Jehovah's play.
Well, here's I like to call this the transfer of hope amongst believers. Now, you've heard me discuss my brother's death about 2-3 years ago. The whole clan in my family and all their friends who are very strong Pentecostal and Baptist believers, they all were saying when my brother was on life support for 3 days, he was already dead. I mean, the life support system was keeping him breathing, right?
Sure, yeah.
And they were all claiming that God was speaking to them and God was going to restore him and heal him because the Bible says it. You guys know all the scriptures I always quote about the healings and so forth. They believed it. So their hope was based upon biblical truths to them. Here I am, the lone atheist of the family, and I'm sitting back there like, oh boy, here we go, you know, watching it. And I was hoping they were right. I'd hope he would recover, and I was hoping that the doctors could revive him, but it was too late already. So, of course, he died. So the transfer of hope went from them hoping that this God of theirs would do like he said in the Old and New Testament. I could quote them all, and it didn't happen. So their transfer of hope went from this miracle-working, loving God who said, you will lay hands on sick, they will recover, yada, yada. Didn't happen. Then their hope changed from, well, it wasn't God's will. God needed him in heaven. Who cares about his wife and his grieving 30-something-year-old daughter, my niece, and all the loved ones? Who cares about that? He needed someone else in heaven. So their hope was transferred from believing this book, which is a complete lie, right? And to the hope of seeing him in the future in the world of immortality.
So now here's a question, though.
As they believe.
In the example of your brother's death, you had a lot of your clan praying there and hoping, right? And so eventually he died. Now somebody could ask, but even though he died, these people were hopeful till his death. So for 4 or 5 or how many ever days it was, they were better off hoping.
You're saying it gave them some relief.
During those, leading to the event.
You think it was beneficial?
So I know. I'm just asking. People will be wondering. Hope. Even if you don't get the result, it puts you in a good, peaceful state of mind till that point of the event actually happening. So what's wrong in that?
Yeah. Well, go ahead. I was going to say. I forgot in my message earlier to this that a Christian would say, hope. Christians claim is what gets them through difficult times, right? Just like my brother's death. That hope, I call false hope, but that hope is what helped them get through that difficult time. Now, I didn't have that false hope. I had reality. So the question was it harder for me than for them? I don't know. It was tough for me, but I'm a realist. I knew that he was already dead, that medical science was just keeping him alive, that his heart had already had he had a heart attack. It was dead, pretty much. So is it this hope that they have, this false hope in the supernatural and immortality, the biblical claims, it can make them feel good temporarily. It can. It's like, well, it's like a drug.
And that's what it is about. I mean, that's, that's what a big part of this thing is about. It's about telling people things that are not true, they're false, to make them feel better. As well as the other bad part is telling people things that are false and to make them fearful, but and that's what it's about. So yeah, hey, let's give them hope, tell them all this stuff, and that the great big daddy in the sky is going to help solve their problems, and that gives them hope and everything. And then of course the other side of it, the great big daddy in the sky is also going to smite you if you don't behave correctly, So it's a balance, I guess, there for them. But for myself, I can remember, people, while there was family members who were sick, or maybe somebody had a car accident or whatever, and at the time when I was still trying to believe in the nonsense, I would pray and I would hold out hope, but it never made me feel better. It didn't. I still had that anxiety, man, right here. So, you'd say that prayer and you'd give that hope, and then once that it was gone, I never got a sense of, boy, I think everything's going to turn out okay. No, never.
So, in that case, in the same example of David's brother and the clan, all the family, if the group of people hoping they were all rationalists, they hoped based in reason, I argue they could still have similar hope. They could still have similar hope, not that some supernatural force will intervene and make things turn out good, but, that this person is breathing, there's some signs of life. So it could turn out that this person can live, and they could just go and try to, talk about that, and that will instill them, in them, hope. Now, doctors may say, 90% this person is not going to live, 10% is going to live. Then the hope will be, diminished. But there is a chance that this person may live, and if there is a possibility, the doctors are going to find that out and do it. So that's a source of hope for a rationalist, I think.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's okay. Let them have it. I don't want to take away somebody's sense of that, and if it makes them feel better and gets them through a rough time, a hard time, absolutely, man, believe it and have it. Doesn't make it true, but if you want to do that and makes you feel better,
good point.
Have at it.
Yeah, but for me, this is me, and I'm sure you guys would probably agree. I mean, I would prefer to believe in reality, right? And just like I had a choice to make, I could have returned to my old belief system when I saw my family seeing this hope. And my mother even changed. She was like 100% sure that her son, my big brother, would be healed in that hospital, in the ICU. Yeah. And
that's a mother who doesn't want to lose her child. And that's a natural human thing. And that
no
goes
greater
back to
love.
What Manoj said, that's a biological thing that helps us propagate our species,
it helps, with natural selection, right? Because when you hope that there is a chance something is going to turn out good for you, then you're motivated to do something. So that's the link between that emotion of hope and survival in action.
Yeah.
Right. All right, guys, I think we've probably exhausted this. No, this is pretty well inexhaustible. Most of these topics we discussed are inexhaustible. We could go on for hours and hours. There's so much to talk about.
But then we would bore the viewers.
Maybe. Yeah. What is the attention span for most people? What is it, like 10 or 15 minutes or something? But
hey, I did want to, when we've talked about this, so we're talked about, we're going to rebrand this show and kind of do a few things different. And so we're trying to come up with a name. We have some ideas that we are kicking around, but we talked about maybe if people who view the show, if y'all want to send in a name suggestion, it doesn't mean we're going to take it. This isn't a contest of whoever has the best name wins. We're just looking for other people who might have some suggestions for names. And you never know. It might be something that we do think is a great name, and we might use it. We might apply it to the show. But again, I want to make sure everybody knows it's not a contest of somebody's name is actually going to be used. We might choose something that we come up with ourselves.
We may have to arm wrestle over it, though.
He's going to beat me. He's stronger.
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me?
He's stronger.
You're
than
younger and you got bigger arm muscles. I'm losing my muscle if I get older.
But anyway, so really, if y'all want to participate, you know.
They need to know. I mean, I wasn't planning on doing this, but thanks for bringing it up. I love your overtness and boldness.
I know you weren't going to bring it up, but we talked about it, and I thought, you know what?
That's why I got this guy to help me.
Because if I don't say it, David's not going to say it.
I know. I'm a little, I'm too nice sometimes. These guys keep me on the straight and narrow. Yeah, they kind of prod me along. But, yeah, we may as well talk about it. We got about 2-3 minutes. So they would need to know the objectives of our show. We are the active type ones, right? We know we don't only do what we do here. We like to push and we like to encounter the religious approachment upon government, about approachment within schools and science and public schools, all the things that Christianity does in our country. We love to do that. We love to go out and do the things we do, hold up signs, but we also are out there feeding homeless people and doing that, promoting secular humanism too. So for us, it's not just one. We have many tools, different goals of reaching a community as secular humanists. And we're firebrand atheists too. And that's what a firebrand atheist is. We stand up against religion, but we also are driven by our compassion for humanity. So that would help you to decide.
Because we're active atheists, activists, you know what I mean? We get out there, we do things out in the real world. We film it when we do it. We encounter street preachers who spew hateful stuff, and we get up there and when we question them and we push back on the things they say. And then, like David said, we go out and we feed the homeless and we do those kind of things as well. And then we're here and we're talking about issues and stuff. So, you know, y'all, if y'all can think about all those things and come up with an awesome name, you know.
It's like a variety show.
Yeah, we talked about a few names, and you know, one name that came up was the Atheist Strikes Back. So
I love it. That's my favorite name we've come up with so far.
We're looking at names.
I know you do. We'll have to arm wrestle over it.
Yeah, we need a name that is, you know, factually representative of what we do, and also we want to express our little, what do you call, the spiritedness, high-spiritedness.
Yeah, we are very spirited. We get riled up sometimes, but
so that's the idea.
Other times we don't.
And
that's the idea for a name.
And think about it like this: so y'all don't. It doesn't have to be some super nice name that pleases everybody. I mean, just think about this. And I love the name of this show. Godless bitches. I mean, you know, I love that. I love it, man.
Yeah,
it's a great name, and it's just perfect. So I mean, it doesn't have to be strictly nice that everybody's going to like. So you know, if just come up with some names if y'all like, and
or we could just keep the Preaching Humanist and buddies. I know that's corny. We won't do it. Don't worry. Just kidding. The Preaching Humanist and his gang. No. We ain't doing that. All right, so yeah, let us know. Contact us and give us some ideas what you think good name would be for the new branding of our show. And I think we're going to attempt, if we can get all this ready, the first of the year, which is coming up very shortly, right? Yeah. All right, so thank you for watching the Preaching Humanist with David Oliverio and Eric and Manoj. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Thanks for watching.
See you next time.